Well, I know anyone who can. Now today I'm going to ask you for a little bit patience with it because I didn't get this story altogether right. And I didn't get it right because the story is very, very complicated, even though it appears to be very simple. But let me start from a simple subject. You know, the subject of why UFOs never fly over rich people's houses. Did you know that? You ever heard a UFO flew over Beverly Hills? No. It's always trailer park. They always fly over trailer parks. And they are usually observed by very large women with a lot of children. And if you look into the history of those people who have seen them, those are all very large people, very large women with a lot of children. And the UFOs out there fly over trailer parks. So that's the beginning of this little secret. Why do they do that? Why don't they like Beverly Hills? What's wrong with Beverly Hills? Now, on the other hand, the UFOs never land in the trailer parks. You know, they only fly over, but they never land. There was never sight of landing over here. They land in New Mexico. That's where they land. Now, let's don't go there. Why do they land in New Mexico? Why would they land in New Mexico? I mean, there's a lot of theories on that subject. Maybe because New Mexico from very far away looks like a soft landing. It's a big, brown, warm, and everything is round, and there's nothing to really get hooked on. Maybe that. Maybe because they are dark. But what turned out to be recently is an evidence that UFOs really don't exist. It was all nonsense all along, and I think most of you knew that very well. The real issue were illegal immigrants from Austria. See, we know about illegal immigrants from, I call it southern New Mexico, but from Mexico. I'm not really sure why they call them illegal, but they call them illegal for some reason. And when they come here, then they come here through the desert. And they either drive or fly or walk or some other way they get in here. But they always get in here that way. But what will the guys from Europe do? They can't just walk through the desert and get inside New Mexico, that place that is obviously the destination of all those masses looking for. So the guys from Austria came up with a really tricky game. They have those monster cannons and they shoot themselves out into outer space, and then they turn over and fly down and they land in Roswell. Now they have landed in Roswell several times. There was only one landing in Socorro, and there was obviously navigational error. Socorro from 20,000 feet looks a lot like Roswell. And that's why one of the guys landed in Socorro. What other reason would anybody have to land in Socorro? In fact, the reason not to land in Socorro was a part of a story. There was a police officer chasing somebody for speeding. That was the very witness of a landing. Well, that was my experience when I drove through Socorro. All I have seen were police officers chasing me for speeding. It happened more than once. So I know that Socorro is a place where police officers chase for speeding. And when he saw this other guy from Austria landing, I suspect the guy was flying faster than the other guy was flying on his little motorcycle, and that's why he started chasing him for speeding. But we don't know the end of that story. We know that recently one of them got busted finally. They did catch the guy from Austria landing right outside Roswell and turn him over to authorities. I sure hope they did. This stuff should be stopped. Now, I honestly have never been to Roswell. So I don't know why anybody would want to fly across the ocean from a very, very well-developed and wealthy country like Austria and land in a place that is not very well-developed, nor it's very wealthy like Roswell. But obviously they had some reason. I do understand why they would land in Roswell rather than in a place like, for example, Columbus, New Mexico. Would anybody want to land in Columbus, New Mexico? You know, in Columbus, New Mexico, just recently, quite recently, they arrested the whole village government. They arrested the mayor, and they arrested the chief of police, and they arrested all those people. My personal funny story is that the same day I was in Columbus, New Mexico, and I have had to deliver certain legal paper to this mayor's wife. And right after police left, hauling off everybody to jail, I didn't even know they did that. They never told me they were going to. I showed up with my paper, and I was wondering why they were looking at me funny. And then when I got home, I turned TV on, and they were showing the house that I went to on that TV screen. I was wondering, they follow me too. So we understand why nobody would want to land in Columbus, New Mexico. At least I got a good idea. I do understand why nobody would want to land in Socorro, New Mexico. I do not know why anybody would want to land in Roswell, but obviously there is a reason for it. They all landing there. Now, would anybody want to land in, let's say, Mesilla, New Mexico? You know, I landed in Mesilla, New Mexico one time. And here, the story is so good I have to read it because I was not capable to really memorize it. I would like to tell you a little story about Mesilla. Mesilla has a very interesting history of their marshals. They call them marshals because they are really chief of police, but they call them marshals because marshals shot somebody a few hundred years ago, and they thought it was such a good name that they just kept the name. Billy the Kid, I think Billy the Kid was arrested by Marshal. Everyone thought it was a good name for cops in Mesilla Marshal. So I look in the history of Mesilla, and what I discovered that the last 4 marshals have a lot in common. One of them, in fact, was arrested in Columbus. But before he got arrested in Columbus, 4 marshals ago, there was a fellow, I have to read it, this is too long. His name was Miguel Gonzalez. That's not too long. I've lived here long enough to get that one right. But he got charged with solicitation to commit cocaine trafficking, conspiracy to commit cocaine trafficking, racketeering, receiving stolen property, criminal solicitation to commit promoting prostitution, criminal solicitation to commit larceny, attempt to tax evasion and conspiracy. That's what they found him guilty of. The list of charges was a lot longer, but they didn't find him guilty of this other stuff. So there was a police officer, there was a marshal of Mesilla. Well, they did fire him since he was in prison and they couldn't let him do his job any longer. And they replaced him with the next one, came over, Marshal Joseph Serna. Now, Joseph Serna was a substantially more honest person than Marshal Gonzalez. He was arrested only one time, and he was arrested only for drunk driving. He was driving 100 miles an hour on a motorcycle, but obviously he had a reason. And the only mistake he has made is he was not driving through Mesilla, he was driving through Las Cruces. And the state officers just didn't understand. So they arrested him. What I find humorous that a whole bunch of people in Mesilla say that he shouldn't be arrested because he has a very stressful job and they fully understand that this man could possibly have a drinking problem. I was thinking next person arrested for drunk driving should use the defense. Stressful job. My motorcycle is really good. There's no reason to drive it slowly. So after that fellow got fired, now after that he got better. At least I think he got better. After that, Mayor Cadena, he was mayor of Mesilla, he borrowed one of the cars that were impounded by local police department, and he took his girlfriend to casino in Sunland Park. And on the way to the casino, he started getting stronger and louder. Now, I wasn't there, I can't say whether he was drinking, I have no clue, but witnesses say that when he arrived to Sunland Park Casino, he was really loud. In fact, he was honking his car horn because they were getting in his way, and he didn't think he should be staying in line with the rest of people waiting on the entrance to casino because he was a mayor of Mesilla. So he deserved to be treated differently. So he drove around all those people, honked the horn, ran them off, and went inside. Well, people who don't understand how important it is to be a mayor of Mesilla call police. And one more time cops came, but this time they couldn't charge Mayor Cadena for drunk driving because he was drinking so much since the call that no one could prove that he was drunk before. He was drunk now. And he told him not to go home in a car that wasn't his anyways. We don't know how he got home. But he didn't come. And next day, which Marshal was it? Vega. Marshal Vega was so upset that the police the Marshal from Mesilla say that it was a very bad thing to do, and definitely Mayor should resign because he got caught in such a bad situation. 2 weeks later, you know what happened 2 weeks later? Marshal Vega got arrested for drunk driving. And when Mayor told him that he should resign, then he said that was personal. The Mayor said that only because he didn't like him, because he told him to resign. So now we understand the quality of a problem the government of Mesilla has now. Is a Mayor and a Marshal, should one of them resign because they were driving drunk, or they shouldn't resign because after all, it's a personal. It's not anybody's business what they do. What's even funnier, in the latest elections in Mesilla, the same Cadena was running for the office, and he was running against the other guy who got arrested for 3 felonies when he was in the government in the... I mean, is this like kind of prerequisite? If you want to work in Mesilla, you have to have at least a felony or 2, because otherwise you just don't fit in. You just don't fit in with this. Now, let me look into my notes a little bit more, because this is just only getting better. Well, finally, we have came to, okay, well this, and as we know already, I think, I don't know if you got caught up with all this, how many marshals in Mesilla got arrested, for what things they got arrested, but this very last one, Vega, he got upset because they put him on suspension because he was caught for drunk driving. So he was so upset that he left Mesilla and he went to work in Columbus. And he was already convicted of felony 3 times by then. He was convicted of 2 felonies before he became a marshal in Mesilla. Mesilla didn't think that should be a problem. So then he goes to Columbus, and what does he do? He's selling guns to Mexican mafia. That's what he did. So he gave up drunk driving. He went now straight like an arrow, just into selling guns to Mexican mafia. And here is the funny thing. Now this was beyond humorous. After he got arrested, the whole government was arrested. I was sitting in Deming in a restaurant eating lunch and reading the newspaper, local newspaper, and it was the article about people from Columbus who feel insecure because they don't have a good protection now, because their best police officer is gone and they don't feel right. Now that's exactly what I always wanted. I wanted to live in town where the guy around there, convicted felon, and an alcoholic is a chief of police, because I would feel secure. I would know that this man is really taking care of me. Well, the story continues. You know, there is new marshal in Mesilla after all this story, and if you ever look at the website of Mesilla, you'll see that it's all different. It's all different. It's nothing like it used to be before. However, now why did I have to say however? In fact, during Mesilla of Trustees, the Marshal of Mesilla, Marshal Grey, stated that police officers are not generating revenue. If they are giving somebody a ticket, that's because those people are committing a crime, and they should be punished. But a minute later, Trustee Caro asked him if he could keep sheriffs and state police out of a city limit. And Marshal Grey said that he could not ask him to stop, and also had an issue with not getting any revenues. Well, wait a minute now. In one sentence, it's no revenues. In the next sentence, he's complaining that he doesn't get revenues because other police officers are helping him to pull over all those criminals. In fact, trustee Jesus Caro, he stated that he believes the officers would have been more lenient if there has been less back talk. Means if they quit talking to officers for giving them tickets. Well, shortly after that, Mr. Caro got a taste of his own medicine when he, during Mesilla Board of Trustee meeting, stated that he saw Deputy Hervol make a U-turn and cause the oncoming vehicle to slam on its brakes. Marshal Grey responded that Deputy Hervol felt it was safe to make the U-turn. Luckily for Mr. Caro, they didn't give him a fine for bad attitude and criticizing Officer Hervol. Well, I was a guy who got a ticket during the jazz festival a couple of years ago, and there was an Officer Hervol. He decided to write me a ticket because I parked someplace there to unload the equipment from my car. And at first I was really nice and polite about it. I said, well, officer, I stopped here to unload the equipment, blah, blah, blah. But he got all very big, well, he is very big, and very loud. And he started giving me how this and how that. And he, in fact, gave me $500 ticket for stopping there. And it's true, yes, I have used bad language when I was talking to him, because he wrote that on a ticket that I was using bad language. But when I went to court, which there was another fellow out there, Fritz, Judge Fritz, I started asking this Judge Fritz that I have never seen the law that I was charged with. I would like to see the book. And the judge told me that he doesn't have a book. An officer told me that he didn't have a book. So nobody has a book. After a long investigation, I found that the law existed, but it was very carefully buried for no one to ever be found. And the law states that I couldn't park there because it was place for disabled, and there was no place for disabled. To make a very long story short, they illegally gave me this ticket. And I won the case in court. And that's pretty much the end of this story. I don't know what to add to it. I know what to add to it. There would be a final ending. The Marshal Grey has been fired from Las Cruces Police Department because he was stealing guns from the evidence room and selling them. And then he was also fired from Sheriff's Department. And that was before he arrived to Mesilla. So as we can see clearly, it's all different now. We are all on a new way to paradise. Mesilla will become a beautiful and quiet place. It's well taken care of. And maybe the only question I would ask is, why is it so? Why do people in Mesilla choose to bring criminals into position rather? Why are they doing this? Is it because they refuse to pay taxes to support real officers? Thank you.